Hey, Tony, in case you're curious, we're waiting for one more commissioner. It'll be here in a couple minutes.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
I can see myself on two different TVs. I look like the Wizard of Oz sitting back there. Brian, I missed the town hall meeting. Are you gonna present some findings from the town hall?
Yeah, it'll be we'll wrap up, and I don't remember which council agenda we decided to put that on, but it'll be in this.
All right. Was it pretty good turnout?
Yeah, it was 9 or 10 folks. Better than I was expecting.
Not bad.
All right, everybody's here.
So we'll go ahead and get this City of Bellevue Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order as of February 3rd at 5:33 p.m. Let's see, I guess first all we want to do roll call.
Yeah. Chairman Kurtz.
Here.
Commissioner Lindbergh.
Here.
Commissioner Greenfield. Present. Commissioner Beiser.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes. Here. Everybody's here.
Oh, great. Notice of agenda compliance. I have a motion finding that the regular meeting and notice and agenda were posted in accordance with Idaho Code 74204 within 48 hours prior to the meeting at City Hall, Post Office, and the city's website on January 30th, 2025.
I'll move the notice for this February 3rd regular meeting was completed in accordance with Idaho Code Section 74-204. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Anybody have anything in conflict with tonight's meeting? Nope. Okay. Public comment. Is Tony the only person online?
Yep.
Okay. Or even for any of us, any items of concern that are not on the agenda. Okay. Move into the public works or the work session. Turn over to you.
Okay, alrighty, thank you. Brian Parker, Community Development Director. Yeah, today just kind of wanted to get you all together, welcome our new commissioner, Genoa, and then kind of get ready for busy time. It's gonna come eventually, I promise. Next meeting we have something to talk about. So first off, just kind of housekeeping, you guys get your agenda packets and printed materials. Are those timely? Are they adequate? Is there anything we can do to make it easier for you guys for your very low paid positions?
Oh, we usually get those Thursday, Friday before, right? You know,
I think we used to get them on Wednesday, so I think I'd like it no later than Thursday. I think sometimes we've seen them on Friday and I'm like, oh, shoot.
Wednesdays.
It's
Thursday for sure. I mean, I think Thursday's fine. But
Okay.
And I think for me, email's fine, and a link to where it's at on the website, that's adequate for myself. I'm not sure about others. But
think it's been working better. I remember before, like we'd kind of get the PDFs and the sizing would be really weird on them, so, and as I was scrolling, it would like jump me back to the beginning and then resize everything, but I don't think I've had that problem since you started sending us more the link.
Okay.
Yeah, when they were attached as PDFs, that
Sometimes it's
weird.
So it'd be like the regular agenda and then like the asset,
The-
or you know,
yeah.
like the development.
The roll plots would come out.
Huge,
full
and you're
size.
like, okay, you're always like constantly resizing. It's just a tiny thing.
when we do get, some, big site designs, that is,
Mhm.
sometimes it can be helpful to maybe pick up a hard copy of this, but that doesn't have to be for everything, I have to say, it just like, okay, only when it's this big, but to me, it really does help when it's, especially when it's a complex design, or whenever we get into that annexation work.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it was something like with the way she sent it, that you weren't allowed to choose the option to like see one page at a time, like it was always only on scroll. So that's why you always had to resize.
Yeah,
Is that making sense? Like when you just went to the one
I
page,
think
then you
John's
could
talking
just,
about actual paper plans.
oh,
yeah,
getting them.
yeah, and
That
I
is nice when we're here.
hate to waste paper, because when we look at it, we throw it in the recycling bin, but so I don't like it for everything, but for some things, it's not quite helpful.
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
It was nice a couple times on meetings when the electronic documents were so tiny, we can read them, and so we needed the big ones, and then we could really go through.
Yeah,
So that was better, even if we have to share. It's like,
yeah, I'm okay, sure.
For my part, I think anything that's big enough that I would want like a larger printout in the physical packet, I'm fine just looking at it on my computer.
Okay.
I typically scroll through it on my phone. And on the phone, some of the bigger, like the site maps and stuff like that are difficult, but I can pop over to the computer and look at that just fine. So I don't think I need hard copies of anything in advance. Certainly some larger format stuff on the hard copies is nice for the meeting, but I don't need them in advance.
You guys, you want the like 24 by 36 size, or like an 11 by 17?
Generally 11 by 17 is more than fine.
25, yeah. Unless it's a one.
So we can print those here versus requiring that, versus the provide us with copies that I didn't have to store in my office forever.
We're in a digital age, let's try to keep it going.
Okay, cool. And then, so the second item on the agenda was just going through quasi judicial decision making, make sure you guys are all comfortable with that and reviewing decision standards and how this all works, just as a little refresher. You guys, a lot of land use applications, especially if they're site specific, there's a specific parcel of land that we're looking at. They're trying to do something with, it's your guys' responsibility to adjudicate the property rights of that property owner to develop the property how they want it to be developed versus the larger implications of community and their surrounding neighbors. And so you are acting as a judge at this point. You're going to review the application materials, all the public comment, everything that I give you in the packet in the record, that is going to be your body of evidence. And you're going to review, including my staff report, any public comment that comes in person at the day of the meeting, the applicant's testimony, all of these things. And then you are going to review that against the given standards for design review or conditional use permit, or wherever the applications may be. And you will determine whether it meets the criteria of approval or it doesn't. Or if they're close and they can tweak these things and come back in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, for me, the one thing that's hard for me sometimes in looking at some of these, and I think I made the comment when in our joint session was sometimes that criteria, the way that it's worded right now, the evaluation criteria, it's tough to say no to a lot of things. Pretty wide open, pretty gray. And I've seen other jurisdictions getting themselves in trouble when they think they can say no, and then they've come to find out that they can't. And it costs them a lot of money. We don't have the money to go to that, I wouldn't think, to invest in some of that. So that's, I just want to maybe voice that again, because I'm a little bit, I want to be careful with, yeah, I'd love to maybe say, yeah, let's tweak some things and maybe my question is, how do we massage that gray area?
Do you have a specific like application type that you find is a little too lenient?
I maybe have an example
Go for it, yeah.
of an application we did last year. So, I mean, just speaking generally, like, the Maverick gas
Mhm.
station. So, you know, we went through the standards, of everything for that, and like you said, you know, tick, 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 change some things, that sort of thing. But then you're kind of just talking to people and people are like, oh, why is this happening? We don't need another gas station. And confirm this if this is wrong or right. I didn't feel like it was our places like planning and zoning. We're like, no, it's our job to determine if it fulfills the requirements, not necessarily like Bellevue doesn't need a gas station, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of council's place, not ours. Maybe it's council's place, I don't know.
On that specific instance, and I think council's place, it is a permitted use in the business zone as the code is currently written.
Right.
So in order to change that and say we don't need more of whatever, we have to change the code, and that's what we've been working on.
And of course, not just using them as an example,
Yeah.
not saying that I regret that decision or we did, you know, anything
Right.
wrong in that decision, but just as an example,
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
We were just straight looking at, this is what the standards say, and if they comply, then
Right.
it goes
Mhm.
in a way, right? Like, goes up.
Yeah. Where it's not, with permitted uses, it's not, something where it's our discretion as to whether it's something that ought to be there or not, it's just whether it meets the design criteria.
Yes, yeah, you're reviewing the design, architecture, site design, all that stuff to make sure that it meets the criteria of approval.
And maybe that biggest bit of wiggle room there when we're looking at that criteria, it's like, I think there's the part where it doesn't fit with our comp plan, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of vague, and I think that's the most vague one, like, cause we're always like, oh yeah, we wanna attract business, yes. Like,
Here we go.
or, right, so
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of a big gray spot.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, as far as that one, but then there's also, it's like like Eric was saying, it's okay, this is permitted use, I mean, we can't say no. Right, unless there's some other outstanding item in that criteria that.
So in that specific example, you can't say no to the existence of a gas station. You can say no to the building's architecture, the material uses, the landscaping, yada, yada, if you can
Yeah.
find that they aren't consistent with the standards.
With the standards, yeah, and a lot of times that's challenging.
Yeah.
But I will say, for the most part, the developers who have brought in some of those projects have been pretty open, you know, to us, you know, having some of those discussions and pretty receptive to our ideas, I think. So I just throw that out there as maybe just a challenge that we're facing.
Yeah, and as a little background, just so you guys are aware, when it actually gets to you guys, there has been a lot of legwork behind the scenes of, you need to change this, you need to do that, so that it is.
Yeah.
It may feel kind of rubber stampy to you guys, but like, hopefully, it's not a rubber stamping. If you feel like there is things that still need further improvement, identify them.
Yeah,
And just let me know and don't be afraid.
gotcha.
So,
The fact that things don't reach us before, the fact that things don't reach us in a configuration that we'll say no to does not feel to me like that's rubber stamping. I think that speaks to, good work on staff's part to help applicants know what they need to bring to us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. So keep knocking it out of the park and keep doing your job.
And every once in a while, we'll get an applicant that just says no to my suggestions, and you guys will probably sense that
Yeah,
by staff report and presentations.
okay, fair enough.
Changing the subject a little bit, sort of in quasi judicial decision making, we are also not supposed to visit the site, right? Or exclude any personal experience of the site that we have. It's only your staff report that.
We're not supposed to visit the site.
Not in a planning and zoning commissioner role, right? Like Aaron, I'm sure, has visited a lot of properties around town in his job as a site inspector. And, you guys have probably done similar things, and you are humans that live in town, and it's a small town, and you see properties. But the whole idea is that the decision is based on a body of evidence that you have reviewed, the applicant has reviewed, the neighbors have reviewed, and can rebut if needed, right? Like, so if you are going out and visiting the site and making a bunch of determinations of its suitability for whatever land use, without letting everybody else participate in that process, that is evidence that can't be refuted and rebutted by the developer or whoever wants to rebut it. Does that make sense?
Yes and no.
So like, can I do a drive-by?
Like sometimes, I mean, you don't get 3D images or like a 360-degree view of a place. Sometimes like I haven't felt like I've gathered enough information about something just from the application and the pictures and what I see on Google Images sort of thing. So yeah, I have like stopped at a place. I'm like, okay, good. I mean, no longer than a minute, like sort of thing where I'm like, oh, I see now what they're talking about. Sometimes like reading descriptions of property lines and stuff, I'm like, I don't get it. So like I just go and I like get a visual and that's it, but.
Yeah, I would recommend if there is a standardized way of doing that, let me know so that we can incorporate it into application documents so that developers can just submit that and you can review those materials. Or if it's an unusual case, don't do a site visit, just say, I can't get my head around this, I need to understand it a little better.
Yeah.
And we'll work with the applicant on figuring out a way to do that in a way that is.
Okay.
And kind of along those same lines, if somebody comes up to you in the grocery store and says, hey, I got a public hearing notice for this thing next to my house and wants to talk to you about it, say no. Just say, I can't talk about it, you need to come to the meeting. Give them my contact information, I'm available to talk to them about it.
Okay.
Well, I remember, the one we did, it was down the river. No, I don't think there's a wind, but it was one.
Oh, down on like,
The setback or?
yeah, the floodplain,
Floodplain,
yeah.
and it's like, I never go down there, never go down to that subdivision. The only way I got a feel for it is I drove down there and I walked around, checked it out, so I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. There's no way I could have figured that out without going there on site.
Yeah, and there may be times that is an appropriate tool. We'll all do it together and it'll be a posted public meeting and Rick will look really nervous the whole time.
Yeah, so is that kind of the way to do that then? I mean, that was a pretty unique.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a very
I
limited.
walk through there twice a week. And it's hard to like separate personal knowledge of that.
Yeah. And that's another thing, is just if this is something that you just have a personal knowledge of because you have personal knowledge of it, disclose that at the meeting, say I walk through here twice a week. No, inspecting it, or I'm a realtor.
Somehow you pulled up like Google Street View before, and I have as well, talking about property, so what, could you just include something like that, like an overhead? Street view in the documents?
Assuming that is something fairly universal, I mean, that is available to the whole town. Which I don't know if Street View reaches all of the streets. in town. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
We could, yeah, I just have to put in a link to.
So like if an application doesn't include a copy of the zoning map, and I decide I wanna look at, you know, how close is this to the edge of the business zone? Or, you know, where does this parcel fall in, you know, within the light industrial? Where, I mean, at the risk of, you know, making this too like ticky-tack legalistic, where, I guess I don't understand this,
So there are like common resources on every application that are city code, our comp plan, our zoning map, like. Those sorts of things that are, like I said, they're fairly universal to every project we're gonna look at.
Right.
They're just gonna be kind of assumed into the record.
And how is that different than actually going and looking at the physical
Because
location?
if you go to the physical location and that particular day it is snowing and raining and blowing 40 degrees sideways, you may have a different opinion of the property based on those unusual conditions than is necessarily reflective of reality. And the applicant doesn't have an opportunity to refute that very well.
Are these guidelines based on like outcomes of lawsuits that have occurred in Idaho? Are they just your personal recommendations? What's
No, they're based on court procedure and, yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah. The thing everybody tells you is, you know, hey, you guys like sidewalks? You wanna look at some buildings? You wanna be on jury duty forever? That's what you're doing. Yeah.
And then I guess it would be, you know, like going back to that, you know, places down by the river that you may know, or semi-familiar with, but others of us may not. When is it appropriate to ask for a request for a site visit? So, you know, have a meeting on site so we can all get a better feel for the situation at hand. Is that during the meeting or is that?
Yeah, I think that would be, like, when you guys, you'll hear the body evidence, you'll kind of review everything, and if you're just like, I just can't wrap my head around this one, there's this one weird topographical feature that's kind of the hinge point of this whole application, we need to get on it, right? That would be a case that,
I think those would.
again, we want to make that really limited, because like it does introduce a lot of opportunities for side conversations and things that may not be appropriate, and so it should be a very
difficult documentation?
Yeah, exactly.
So hypothetically, if the so let's take that floodplain one that we had. If hypothetically, I knew that that was on the agenda, and I happened to just, you know, my kids and I walked down there couple times a week. And on that week's walk, I was like, yeah, I'd never looked at it through that lens before. In the meeting, if I disclose, hey, you know, I'm down there on a pretty regular basis, and these have been my observations when I am down there, just in the regular course of life. Is that something that is, that we should avoid drawing those personal experiences in? Or is that something that we would be in the clear to discuss?
I think, that's something you can discuss, and that's part of, that's a balancing point of being an informed commissioner and knowing your town and
We
knowing,
live in, yeah, like, so if a.
my advice would be like, if you see it on the agenda and then you walk down there and you start thinking about these things, take pictures, take notes, document as much as you can so that it is a uniform thing, that not just your thoughts. Right?
Okay. So like, thinking about, on design review standards and criteria, it talks about, being in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and things like that. It's like, how are we supposed to evaluate that if we're supposed to avoid like going and observing it?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's, I think, kind of back up to the housekeeping side of things of, I can't evaluate this correctly based on the information, so I need this instead. Like, I need a 360 view, I need more site photos, need staff to go out and take photos on our behalf, that sort of thing. Just let me know what is missing from applications consistently, and I can incorporate that into staff reports in each.
Maybe that's a great example of something to incorporate now, though, like you said, like if one of the guidelines is to, in keeping with the surrounding buildings or area, maybe that's something they start adding into their applications, is photos of the surrounding area.
Yeah.
Like of,
Like the 300 foot vaginas around.
Yeah,
I think
like
that's good.
show us what the surrounding area is, that if we're not supposed to investigate. Cause I think out of all things, that's maybe, if I was looking at things, that's what was looking at most. Things I can't quite pick up from Google Earth or something.
Yeah.
We're allowed to look at that. Okay. That's like up in that's on my computer in meetings, like the whole time. I'm like, okay, let's move around the street.
Well, I suppose during a meeting, if that question came, or when that question comes up, that criteria, we could say, hey, let's bring up Google.
Yeah,
Earth
it's
or let's
perfectly
Google
reasonable
Maps,
to say,
and
hey,
let's
Brian,
do a
can you pull this up and ask
360
me to show you whatever, and
Street view, and yeah, and we can. Yeah, that's a great, well, then we're all seeing the same thing at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah. That's. Cool.
Okay.
Anything else?
That is pretty short.
Well, I mean, maybe a couple of things that weren't on the agenda. I would say welcome.
Genoa.
Genoa.
Yes.
Genoa, all right, welcome, glad you're on board.
Thanks.
Is it appropriate, can you just say one or two things about yourself so we can get kind of a feel for who you are in the world?
Yeah, I'm Genoa, I live up over on Elm Street, right by the park. I work for planning and zoning up in Ketchum, as on the staff side of things. I'm an associate planner there, so that's kind of my background of how I know some of this stuff. Yeah, and I moved to Bellevue about 5 years ago. The Valley, I've been here about 6 years, so yeah, glad to be here.
Good, well, glad you're on board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, thanks for
Should
calling
be an
your.
interesting couple of years.
Couple.
Yeah.
You're the long haul.
Yeah.
And then maybe one last thing as far as, I think, was it a handful of meetings ago, we said at the first of the calendar year, we vote on.
Bylaws?
Bylaws. and-
I forgot to add that in, and I owe you several rounds of minutes, so
Okay.
next meeting.
Next time around. Okay, yeah, no, I knew we weren't gonna go there tonight, but,
Yeah.
reminder.
Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Anyone not available, for the February 18th? meeting?
Should be fine.
February 8th. Oh, we did move it to Tuesday, because of
Oh, yeah,
President's Day.
President's Day.
I had it on here on Monday, so, okay, so it's definitely Tuesday.
Should be fine.
Good.
Help here.
Okay.
You guys lose track. Go to the planning and zoning page. We have a nice new graphic.
I like to live in the now. That's a lot.
I guess going back to housekeeping really quick, do we have city emails that we're supposed to use, or do we use personal emails for like packets and agendas and?
If you prefer city email, we can set one up for you, but
Okay.
otherwise,
Wasn't sure if it was a standard issue.
for council it is.
Okay. Well, with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Passes. Okay. Adjourn 6:02.
Yeah.
29-minute meeting.
It's the only way we can
Record.
keep the